December 20, 1943, high above Germany. A flying Fortress An American B-17 bomber nicknamed the Olde Pub was in horrific shape. It had just completed a bombing raid on Bremen, but at a terrible cost. The pilot was Charlie Brown, a 21-year-old kid on his first combat mission. Half of his tail rudder was gone. 2 engines were dead. The fuselage was shredded by flak, and the temperature inside was a freezing -60 degrees. Most of the crew were severely wounded. The tail gunner was dead, and Charlie himself had briefly lost consciousness. They were flying low, slow, and completely alone. They were a sitting duck, and then Charlie looked out the window. Flying right next to him was a German Messerschmitt fighter. The German pilot was Franz Stigler, a battle-hardened ace. He needed just one more kill to win Germany's highest military honor, the Knight's Cross. As Stigler closed in on the crippled American bomber, his finger was on the trigger. But as he got closer, he paused. He didn't see a threatening enemy. Through the gaping holes in the B-17's fuselage, he saw the terrified, bleeding American crew trying to save each other's lives. To Stigler, shooting them down wouldn't be a victory. It would be murder. He remembered the words of his former commanding officer. "You are fighter pilots first, last, always. If I ever hear of any of you shooting at someone in a parachute, I'll shoot you down myself." To Stigler, this defenseless bomber was no different than a man in a parachute. Instead of pressing the trigger, Stigler did something unthinkable. He pulled up right alongside the B-17's cockpit. He looked Charlie Brown dead in the eye and began to gesture frantically. Stigler was trying to tell Charlie to land in Germany and surrender, or fly to neutral Sweden, which was closer. But Charlie, shocked and confused, just stared back, terrified. He ordered his gunner to point the remaining turret at the German, but they didn't shoot. Realizing the Americans wouldn't turn back, Stigler made a choice that could have gotten him executed for treason. He flew directly in formation with the B-17. Why? Because German anti-aircraft guns on the coast would shoot down an American bomber, but they wouldn't fire if a German fighter was flying right next to it. Stigler became their human shield. For long, tense minutes, the two enemies flew side by side over the German coastline. Once they reached the safety of the open North Sea, Stigler looked over at Charlie Brown one last time. He raised his hand in a salute, peeled his fighter away, and flew back to Germany. Against all odds, Charlie Brown managed to fly the Olde Pub across the sea and landed safely in England. When he briefed his commanders about the good German who saved them, the military classified the story. They didn't want the public feeling sympathy for the enemy. Stigler also kept the secret. If the Gestapo had found out, he would have faced a firing squad. For 46 years, Charlie Brown couldn't forget the face of the German pilot who saved his life. In 1990, Charlie decided to search for him. He published a letter in a combat pilot newsletter. A few months later, he received a letter from Canada. It read, "I was the one. Franz Stigler had survived the war and moved across the ocean." When the two men finally met in a hotel lobby, they didn't see enemies. They fell into each other's arms and wept. They became as close as brothers, remaining best friends for the rest of their lives, and dying just months apart in 2008. In the darkest depths of the brutal air war, these two pilots proved that humanity can triumph over hatred.